Hey, what's going on, legends? So, I just made a video about samurai build advice, and upon watching it and just kind of going over the key points, I realized that it was way too long, and I'm trying to do something that's a little bit quicker, more concise. It was about 50 minutes long, and it did have a lot of useful information, but I think in the interest of just making something that's useful and quick and you can reference easily and not have to, dig through 50 minutes worth of, you know, information, then it's probably better for me to keep it as short as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and discuss different categories. So first, I'm going to go over techniques. Now I'm going to go from stronger to weaker. So stronger technique for samurai is by far Raging Flame. The way that the Raging Flame behaves is just insane. The DPS, the spread, the how long it lasts, it's just insanity. And this is even after being nerfed. So that's going to be your better option. Now the second option is Spirit Pull, and this is for survivability. Um, it's really good if you're still not, too comfortable with legends and still trying to find your footing in the combat system and all that. It's a really good option. Um, so Explosive Blade is my least recommended option. It's because other than it looking really cool, it does really little damage and it doesn't get buffed by any stats. So yeah, it's gonna be my no go for the class ability. As far as um, the first technique point goes, I would say definitely go with double legendary for samurai because the combinations can be pretty powerful. And then this slot actually doesn't take away too much from your DPS. The second alternative would be deep strikes because it gives you that 25% increase to melee damage, which also goes into your ult. Um, but yeah, so this is personal preference. Then Samurai Unleashed because that means that you can use your Raging Flame more often. And finally, this is for people that are still not too comfortable with Legends and still learning it. Defender is a good alternative because it does, that quarter additional health does make a difference in the beginning. For the next technique point, nothing really comes close to resolve increase, just because, you know, all the resolve you could be building that just kind of you're not, depending on, your enemy load. But yeah, so that way you almost have, if you have two resolve increases, then you almost have another ultimate in the bag. So it really makes a difference if you know how to use the additional two resolves. The next one would be Healing Strike, and this is for survivability because if you're good at perfect parrying, then you can restore half your health with one perfect parry, which is actually quite nice. Critical defense is really, I would recommend it. It's just really circumstantial. Like you're not going to be trying to perfect dodge or perfect parry too much if you're if you have little health. And this is probably the worst technique point for samurai. Lightning reflexes, you can parry arrows. Big whoop. Not really useful in my opinion. As far as the last technique point, nothing really even comes close to Hachiman's Frenzy. That the two additional strikes on your ult make a huge difference. Um, the next thing that I would recommend would be Heavenly Strike. This is a weaker version of the Heavenly Strike that you could get, for example, from the Stone Cutter, Stone Striker. Stone Cutter is a sword kit. Stone Striker gives you a stronger Heavenly Strike because once you've staggered an enemy, it does this different. It's like the execution animation from the Ghost stance in the main campaign, and it does a crap ton of damage. So if you do the Heavenly Strike on an enemy that's been staggered, you'll see that it's actually pretty wild. And this one doesn't give you that. So not as good, but still good if you're, you know, new player and you haven't unlocked any of the next ones. This is actually the only thing you have, and it's not that bad. Um, the double legendary slot here, actually, I would not recommend at all, just because you're giving up this. This is the samurai's main feature. It's like the 5 strike ult, so it doesn't even come close. Or if you're considering a triple legendary build, it's also not really. It's very amateurish, and or people that are really high profile players might try to do a triple legendary build just for fun, to test out new things, or just for the heck of it, but wouldn't really recommend it because you're giving up this. And Hachiman's rage, also very circumstantial. Like, you would have to be a really top, like a top player, to be able to handle waves in a way that this is effective, because you're basically having to single out the beefier enemies so that you can actually take advantage of the 300% increase on ultimate damage. Now, with that being said, I really don't, for the first, so for your katana, I really don't play with anything else but Moon, since I learned how to play Moon Master Cancel, or how to do Moon Master Cancel. But since I learned that, it's been a game changer. So if you're cool with animation cancels, I definitely could not recommend. There's few things that you could invest your time in that would be more fruitful to you than to learn how to Moon Master Cancel, because it can save you in a pinch. You could be surrounded and have no ammo, no nothing, and just your Moon Master Cancel can get you out of pretty sticky situations. So it's really something to be considered. Now, if you're not cool with that, a strong alternative is the Stone Master. So Stone Katana with Stone Master, because the stagger potential is and the speed is comparable to. It's the only thing that's comparable in the game to Moon Master Cancel. So yeah, definitely a strong choice, and also aesthetically is my favorite one of the stances, just because it looks more appropriate to actual, fighting stances for katanas, whereas Moonmaster looks kind of silly. Um, and then you have, uh, or the moon, I guess, stance in general. And then I don't really do water, just because I got burnt out on playing with water katanas in the beginning, and coming from the main campaign, that's what I did mostly. And I'm sure most people that play Ghost and come to Legends do the same thing. The wind katana is also pretty weak, even after the buff to the stagger damage. It's still not really a competitor, because the heavy attacks are so damn slow. So yeah, would only recommend Moon or Stone. As far as your ranged weapon, difficult to compete with Forbidden Medicine, but we do have a pretty strong competitor in the Weightless Spirit after the last patch, because they enormously buffed the speed. So this thing is also, I mean, it's something really, really fun if you're kind of tired, or you don't really want to mess with bombs, or if you're sick of chucking bombs. It's a pretty good alternative, and also builds your ult super fast. And with helmet piercing, I mean, I like it. You could go with shield piercing, and then headshot refund. You basically never run out of ammo. Whereas with Forbidden Medicine, sometimes you do have to pay a little bit of attention to how you manage your ammo. Alternatively, you could go with the half bow or a long bow. But yeah, it's going to slow you down um, quite a lot. So it could be fun just for like fun runs, because it opens up different possibilities for your build, to not have to use Forbidden Medicine as your one legendary if you want to go just with one legendary. But other than that, yeah, gonna slow you down. Now the stronger charm types for samurai are, it's counterintuitive, but they're not samurai charms. The stronger charms for samurai are stealth charms and utility charms. It's because of the properties that they'll let you stack. Um, I don't really mess with defense charms on any of my classes just because defense charms, a lot of people use injure resolve gain on that or the gourd, and that's just I feel like it's a bad habit to have from the beginning because you get comfortable with enemies hitting you to gain resolve, and so you actually want the opposite. You want to get not comfortable with enemies hitting you. You want to be avoiding getting hit most of the time or as much as you can. And you want to use those slots for DPS. So a lot of people that complain about not getting enough kills as their teammates is because they probably are using slots for defensive stats as opposed to DPS stats. So they're actually effectively doing less damage than their teammates. Um, so yeah, so stealth charms let you stack ghost weapon damage and fire damage, or status effect damage and fire damage, and then you can stack it with Fire Master and Resolve Increase, and that's one hell of a combo. Um, then we have melee charms. That would be my next recommendation, even before samurai charms. The second strongest charm type for a samurai is the utility charm because it lets you stack ultimate damage and Oni damage, or fire damage and Oni and ultimate. So it has less options as you can see, but they're pretty strong options. So definitely one of the stronger ones, and it's really useful, for example, during immunity, because you can have more DPS that's not tied to status effects. So and then melee charms are pretty good as well because you can combine melee damage with ultimate damage or Oni, which is basically the same thing that happens with the samurai charm. It's a melee charm, so it gives you the same options, but then it gives you the samurai specific properties, and those are pretty okay. Blessed strikes is pretty okay. Spirit pull targets is pretty okay. The other one that's class specific is rising tempo, but this one is really circumstantial. So it increases your damage by 10% and it caps at 50. So successive kills without taking damage increases damage dealt. So every kill that you get without taking damage will raise your damage by 10. And when you get to 50, it's going to last for 10 seconds and then it's going to go away. It's going to reset. So, uh, arguably useful, but circumstantial, and you need to be really good at the game to benefit fully from this, as opposed to blessed strikes where you could just ult and then heal back up. So the samurai charm I would actually recommend more for like solo runs. So if you're doing, you know, solo gold or survival nightmare runs, then I would say samurai charm can be useful. And so one of the things about samurai is, well, I'll go into that later. So I don't want to get, go into too many uh, um, tangents here. So that's as far as charms are concerned, that's my recommendations. Like I think I did already go over the fact that I don't use defense charms because I don't like to get into the habit of getting hit for my resolve, which a lot of people that use defense charms use it to get injury resolve gain. So the only defense charms that I do have are legendaries, and they're because of the perk. So this one is a good perk, but as you can see, I just leveled it up to 120. I haven't even used it. All these stats are random. But the good thing about the legendary defense charm as opposed to the epic is that it actually lets you combine DPS stats. So you can combine ultimate damage with fire damage or Oni damage, as opposed to the epic one, which only gives you one DPS stat at the bottom. And then at the top, it gives you only one of these five stats that are all defensive. So you're sacrificing DPS there. Um, let's see. And then for your ghost weapon one, difficult to compete with the sticky. just because if you have fire damage, it actually makes the sticky pretty powerful. Um, and then also because it'll so the blast radius on the sticky will stack with the blast radius on the forbidden medicine, and so it'll effectively make your bombs 50% bigger. So that means that AOE of your bombs hits more enemies, which means more resolve and more DPS. So that's definitely the reason to have sticky with the samurai on top of the increased radius on the sticky itself, giving you a 100% increase uh, globally for the sticky bomb, and then 50% for the bombs on your bomb pack. And then fired up just makes that it's like a nuke. It's incredible. You chuck it at a group of enemies and it does tons of damage. So the next thing is the smoke bomb. Well, actually, no. Let me go over the rest of the ghost weapon one options. So dirt throw can actually be useful sometimes, especially like this one with rancid. So you apply weaken to your targets. Although the AOE is really small, most of the time you're going to be only hitting one enemy. You could hit two, but they have to be so close. So it's an okay option. Um, melee damage. So the kunai is a pretty viable choice, especially if you're stacking melee damage. So you could stack it on the kunai, the charm, and the katana, giving you 36% additional melee damage, which would go into your ult as well. So that's a pretty good option, especially if you stack it with the technique point, which is an additional 25%. Um, that would make it pretty significant. You know, all the additional melee damage you're doing. Um, My top choice for Samurai is this melee damage, ghost weapon damage, super massive, and hidden blades. Because super massive can stop enemies on their tracks. If you have an Oni Lord that's coming at you with the slam, you can stop him with the super massive perk. Um, and then hidden blades, you know, you hit more targets. Alternatively, it's good to have cooldown reduction on kill for this. I would also recommend that. Um, and then we have Spirit Kunai is a great alternative for Samurai, especially for soloing, because it'll give you your cooldowns. So you want to have your smoke as much as possible, um, and your ghost weapon one. So if you get 2 kills, it immediately resets your Spirit Kunai. So it could save you in a pinch, and it's great to have like everything come back, all your ghost weapon down, or your ghost weapons and your class ability coming back like all the time. So Spirit Kunai is one of the strongest legendaries in the game. Definitely a good uh, choice for Ghost Weapon 1, depending on what you're going for. And then Ghost Weapon 2, it's difficult to go with anything that's better than a smoke that has all the cooldowns that you can get. So both of the cooldown options as properties, and then lucky for your perk number one and or two, whatever, and then munitions because you need those munitions regardless of what you're running, or for your teammates as well. Um, Caltrops are good as well because they can give you more stagger damage. So you could have a build that has a ton of stacked up stagger damage, or you could have one that's more. Um, so I think I have. You can have one that's more ghost weapon damage. So if you're wanting to run, let's say, this combination, you have all this ghost weapon damage, right? So you'd have it. You have 60% stacked up on your kunai, caltrops, and stealth charm. So, or you could go with this if you're wanting to get those to make those spirit kunai stronger and get a bunch of ghost weapon kills easier. Then this is a really good option as well. Uh, Traditionally, caltrops are more of like for experienced players, um, just because smoke helps so much in so many different situations as a new player. It protects you from enemies. You can get assassinations. You can group up, like enemies will group up to your smoke, so uh, that's like better for grouping and getting more kills. So yeah, smoke is great usually, and then caltrops is a little bit more of an advanced option. But yeah, that is my advice. I do have this gourd that I had from way back when that I don't really use. I'm probably gonna end up dismantling it, but don't really recommend the gourd on any class, especially an epic, because it's like I said, the options that it gives you are not that great, and yeah, it's just not optimal. It's the by far the weakest option for Ghost Weapon 2. Um, an alternative option is Bottle of Liquid Courage, which could be great for rivals or for story. Although Samurai is typically not a great class for story, especially if you're speedrunning. Um, it's more of a assassin hunter um, realm story is. So yeah, Bottle is also really fun for just fun builds for survival. So you could go, let's say, go back to Sticky here, and you could go back. You could go with bombs and Bottle Liquid Courage, and then have your ult like all the time. Because you could go, or even you could even go with the Weightless Spirit. Or if you're wanting to get your gourd more, you could go with just a half bow and then do something like this. And then so you got two things, so goes weapon damage. So you would get kills and you would reset your cooldowns for the bottle liquid courage even more. So you would get uh, your ult, you would get access to your ult a lot more often. There's really a lot of options for samurai as far as fun builds. As far as DPS goes, the pretty much there's nothing that tops the meta currently. As it stands, the meta for Samurai is this. This is what most speedrunners do. It's Anjos and Forbidden Medicine. And yeah, so it's difficult to compete with that because Anjos gives you that additional 50%, I mean 15% damage that applies across all types of damage, and then you have Forbidden Medicine for on-demand healing, so you can be full health all the time, so you can get that boost from the perk of Enjo's Remorse. And there's yeah, I mean you could try out the combinations as much as you want. You're not gonna come you're not gonna come across with anything that does more damage than this build. You could switch out the katana for anything with the same stats, but the rest it's pretty much unchangeable unless they update it and change it. Um, as far as highest DPS. But yeah, that's my basic advice for samurai builds. Let's see where we're at. 23. I'm halfway of what I had. I was trying to keep it as short as possible, but it's not as short as I would like. But it's difficult to do that with the amount of variety that you could get from builds. Anyway, let me know in comments if you like this or if you found it useful, or if you have new ideas or new questions for builds, or anything that you think I didn't cover as far as builds for samurai goes. Let me know, and I appreciate you guys checking it out. Take it easy. GG's.